Welcome to the Shaman Vision Podcast. I got another great guest with me. This guy's an entrepreneur, he's an artist, and really he's on the cutting edge of technology. What's going on, Benito?
Hey, what's going on, JD, man?
Man, it's great to have you on the podcast. Let me tell a short story real quick of how I met this guy. I was just like, surfing online, looking, trying to get it in an art show or whatever, and I seen a local gallery, QZ Galleries, having an art show. I'm like, okay, bet. Submit, end up getting picked. Cool. I go in there, meet the guy. I'm like, yo, he's a cool guy. These are cool dudes. I'm imagining they're around my age. I was like 25, 26 at the time. And I get to the art show. We have a great time, a great turnout, a lot of positive vibes. And I'm like, man, these dudes are cool. I'm going to go. Let's see if they want to drink a beer or something after the art show because, we had a good time. I talked to them. All these guys are like 19 and 20. They're 19, 20-year-old dudes. They own their own gallery. They're making their own artwork. They're making connections all over the world. They're in magazines. They're doing all types of wild shit. And I'm like, how are these young men, smart enough and have the right instincts and the motivation to go about this and to bring this into light? And so that's my first question for you, man. What gave you the idea and what gave you the initiative to go on and start your own art gallery? Because that's a bold thing to do.
Well, first off, I think, getting into the studio, like where I'm at right now, is what transformed into the gallery, which I would say started from two things that just merged together, which being the first one, being something that's been kind of apparent through my whole, like we share this, we both live in St. Joseph, Missouri, a place that a lot of people don't know of.
Right.
But if you do know, that there's not a whole lot going on for arts. There's not a whole lot going on for kids who are interested in arts or music. And they say that there's the programs in school, there's the programs here, but it doesn't extend outward. It doesn't extend after school very often. It doesn't extend into programs that really cultivate kids that are into things other than academics or sports. So that has given me a great desire through my whole childhood just to be in connection with people, with other people who are in art, and to have a place have a place to be around people and to just simply be making things with other people. So I mean, that was always a big thing, and that's kind of how this started. Was Miguel Cruz and I was in school in Chicago, and I had been there for a semester. And when I was there, I had kind of already known I wasn't, I had met a lot of great people, which is part of what allowed this to grow to be what it is now. But I had already kind of known that I wasn't going to last there for financial reasons, for just academic reasons. I knew a degree wasn't what I was necessarily seeking out. So it was really like I had to figure something out for my own. I had the experience. I know what school had to offer to an extent. And I talked to Miguel, and we're like, he's like, hey man, like, a good place in St. Joe. He's still back here in St. Joe, and I'm in Chicago. He's like, a good place to work in like a studio space. Like, any spaces around here. In Chicago, I had a space. I was very fortunate to have a really nice studio space in my time there. And I had been telling him like, man, it's great to have a nice space. He was like, I can find one around here. Well, I didn't. And like, we started looking, there's nothing. And the only thing that we could think of was like, okay, St. Joseph, Missouri, cost of living, property,
Yeah.
costs, everything is low. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know what, let's see if we can find a place to rent, like literally lease a place. Like, and we're talking, he's 18, I'm 19, talking about like leasing a place. We'd never done that before, never had nobody like show us how to do it. But
Right.
it was one of those things. It's like, we're gonna figure it out, and if it's God's will, we find a place that is meant to be.
Yeah,
and
man.
like we got a place, and that's where the next thing comes in, is like not only to have a place to work, but kind of I did kind of touch on it, is like having a place to connect with people.
Yeah.
And like I was also blessed with a great opportunity in it would be 3 years from 3 years ago, like literally on the day, that like in July 2017, when I was blessed with the opportunity to go to New York for a month. And after going there on an art program at NYU, I was like, I had realized like, wow, this is my first time out of the Midwest.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, man, there's so much out here. There's people out here. There's like lovely things you can find in yourself from doing that,
No
from
doubt.
just connecting with people. And so like I come back my last year of high school and I'm like, there's people here like that. There's people here that want to do things. There's people here who are into art. We just got to connect them. And like, so
Definitely.
at that point, I had started trying to like putting out surveys and stuff. It's like, who would be down for this? Who'd be down to like start a collective? We can do like open mics and this and that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was something that never came to be. I had been like trying to finish up my last year of school and like figure out what I'm going to do afterwards. So it never turned out to be something, but really is like, that's what it is now. And it's growing to be that now. We're still here in St. Joseph. But like through the last year, putting that, you know, that drive, that passion to bring people together in some way led us to meet, you know, me and the others. Like it led us to meet others in the city who we would have never probably met
No doubt.
in that way. And now it's like, even if it's just you and I, we can consider that a collective. If it's, you
No
know, I know
doubt.
you just talked to Kenneth.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a collective.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
these are connections where it's like, it doesn't have to be massive, but if the quality, it doesn't have to be about quantity, you know, like if the quality of you know, the people and what they want to contribute is there, then that's all you need. So that's like what we are trying to do here,
Well, that's what you're
and
doing, man. That's
expand
what really
on.
struck me when I went to you guys' art show is that it wasn't just you and a couple other guys. You had like 5, 7 guys with you that came from different parts of the state that traveled to come here that were, you know, proud to be a part of it. And you were a team and you were starting a collective here in St. Joe. And I seen what you were doing, man. And I was inspired by it, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was inspired by what you were doing. And
Whatever.
that was a great opportunity for me, man. I had a lot of fun. You part of your business is you work with augmented design or augmented reality is a better term
Right.
for it, right? Let me
Right. Yeah.
know a little bit about how you got into augmented reality because that's, you know, some future thinking type of stuff. You don't get taught that in school. People don't just think I'm going to do augmented reality. That's something you really got to be thinking in the future to, you know, want to get started. So how did you get started doing that?
Well, I mean, you know, I stumbled upon like a few months ago of a little drawing that I did. You know, if you're in high school or you're in middle school, they give you, you know, an art class, they'll give you a little prompt, and they'll give you, you know, they'll present you like some little opportunities here and there. And one of them that I remember they gave out, I think I was 16. It was the doodle for Google. You know, they give you a blank like Google sheet or like a blank sheet, and you gotta design your own you
Google
know,
thing, right?
Google logo based
And
on
they
their
throw it on
prompt,
the
whatever.
they throw it on the search engine thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So the winner, it's all like high school kids and middle school, you know, it's like whoever wins gets their design up on the site. So I remember the prompt for that year, the 2016 or 2015 was like what do you see in the future, and design a Google logo around that. Is like what is your perspective of the future. And at that time I had been, I believe, reading a book, or at least started reading. I maybe didn't finish it for a while, but it was Ready Player One. And that book is, you know, if you know the book or you know the movie, it's just about this world where people are consumed into immersive technology. They have the headsets, they have the things in their bodies, you know, the suits, the chairs,
Yeah.
um, and they're just completely immersed into this virtual world, and they just like begin, like really they begin like neglecting their own world,
Right.
you know.
Because they created their own world, basically.
They created, yeah. So they created just an illusion of what they wanted to be. And you know, so like I had always been really interested in that idea of like using this technology to destroy and build at the same time in just exponential rates. It's like their world is dying and being destroyed,
Right.
but they're building something that is like uh
better.
just
It's different.
it's never, it's yeah, like on the top of what education has ever been, on the top of like what you could argue like social interaction has ever been, is like it's they're reaching the peak of these things while the world is destroyed.
Dude, that
So
seems like a
with
great
that,
metaphor what's going on right now. That, like, when you say that,
yeah,
like, the world's fucking destroying and people are trying to come together to create
definitely,
some new shit. Sounds like what's going
definitely.
on right now. Man, with that, I've seen some artwork that I think you've worked on in your gallery where you can put your phone up to it and it
Hmm.
becomes augmented, you know. And
Yeah,
that stuff is so dope, man. I could only imagine where that is going in the future. I seriously could only
yeah,
imagine whole art galleries that are full installations and you walk through and like VR goggles and like
yeah,
you could just travel through this whole thing with like monsters and
yeah.
fucking plants and shit coming out at you, dude. I could see where that's going, and if you just project that into the future, it's gonna be
Hmm.
crazy. Like I like to think of it like you remember the first cell phones like in the '90s that were like bricks.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like that's what VR is
yeah.
right now. It's like
Oh
a
yeah,
brick,
yeah.
and then that evolved to the iPhone. And one day there's going to be like an iPhone, or augmented and virtual reality, and it's going to be part of every people's everyday life. Like you've heard of Google Glasses and the program
Oh yeah,
Microsoft has.
yeah.
Like that's in development, man. That's coming. That's going to be here in the next 10 years. That's going to be part of like school. That's going to be a part of work. That's going to be it's going to completely change
Hmm.
how people perceive reality.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not even like the reason, a big reason that these things are the way they are right now, like you mentioned, like the metaphor to like old phones, is like the way they are so sleek right now. It's like if you compare the computing power of the iPhone, like no matter how much smaller it is to what that was, what those phones were, you see it's like so much more powerful, even though the size is reduced. And a big thing that's going to do that for things like virtual reality, and by no means am I like super computer guy. I don't know like a ton, but I'm just, there's a few things that I do know. So there's a lot of people that could be, you know, telling you more details about this. But what I do know is that the role that artificial intelligence is going to play in the way that this technology becomes less than less than a headset, less than glasses, and just a part of our everyday life. And this is what I'm talking about, is like once it becomes a part of everyday life, and there is no longer, because that's the goal. That's, the whole goal of virtual and immersive technology is to make technology feel like it is part of life. That
No
where you
doubt.
can hand it to a an elderly citizen and give it to them, and they can interact with it
It's
as they
intuitive.
would the real world.
Yeah,
It's
it's
intuitive.
intuitive.
Because
You
you hand it.
go.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, man. Go ahead. You brought up a good point though when you were talking about like you're saying they're making it so small, smaller than goggles, smaller than glasses, smaller than contacts. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the Neuralink or what are you talking about?
So I mean, it could be contact, it could be Neuralink, which, for those who don't know, is the Elon Musk led um mission to have, microchips type thing, stimulating parts of your brain and trading
Yeah.
off experiences and physical attributes, you know. Um,
I usually ask this question at
so
the end of my podcast, but since we're talking about it right now, would you be down to get that Neuralink put inside of your head?
um, I would not. Honestly, I would not. And that's kind of like what I was getting into with like talking about Ready Player One and talking about the technology, is like I I I see the benefit. There is a great, great, great benefits. Like,
Definitely.
and I'm talking about like people who never would think that they would be able to use their bodies in certain ways, or people that they would never be able to see or feel certain things, are going to likely be able to experience those things because of something like Neuralink. Um, but and this is just what I'm saying. Like, this is not necessarily an endorsement. It's just like, if it's not Neuralink, it's gonna be somebody else,
Oh
because
yeah,
this is
it's
the
coming.
technology that we have.
It's coming.
So what I mean is like there's a certain power to that, but whenever we're talking about the technology being consumed as a part of regular life, that's where things become a little weird for me personally. And that's where I was going into step two with when you asked like why getting into this stuff, like into the augmented reality, virtual reality and all that is when knowing that possibility of things being taken to a very bad path, is by seeing it, the possibility for it to not be that way, and for seeing it to be used in a cultural way, a spiritual way that is
Ooh, that's deep.
supplementary. It's
That's deep.
supplementary
Talk
to
about
real
that
life.
for a second. Talk about that for a
Well,
second. Talk
okay,
about how you could use augmented reality and virtual reality for spiritual purposes.
for spiritual purposes, and okay, so this is where it does get kind of weird because people have different descriptions of the word spiritual.
Right, right.
So like what does spiritual mean to certain people? For somebody that might mean like doing a certain drug, somebody that might be sitting in silence for 10 hours. um excuse me, sorry. But yeah, okay, so for technology to be spiritual is like it has to be recognized as what it is, just as anything does. And it can't be overpowering to the way that it's like allows you to believe you are more than a human, because at that is like what I believe, and I think a lot of uh spiritual basis is that like you need to be mindful of you are not more than what you are in a sense.
Yeah,
And I think that comes, and then so when we're talking about illusions and the way that the world is right now, I think a lot of it comes from people not being able to confront uh what they are. And
and the
so
illusions that people are caught up in. Society feeds you illusions. In school, you get taught
exactly,
propaganda. You know what I mean? You
exactly,
get taught
exactly.
propaganda all the time, and that becomes its own form of illusion. And yeah, you're right. People need to wake up
Yeah,
that it is an illusion, and we got to see the reality of what this thing called life really is, and we got to keep moving forward for sure, man. You
I
brought up some
think
good
I think
points.
that's right too. And not only is that propaganda like enforcing certain ideas, but and ideals about the world, but it's also kind of enforcing an idea of an identity about yourself,
Definitely.
that these ideals are me and these things own me,
Right.
rather than and that's just a huge problem in itself.
Well,
um
dude, this is a great conversation, and you brought up an interesting question, an interesting point, man. A long time ago for a class, I did a podcast with my girlfriend, right? The first Shaman Vision podcast ever, and it was super lo-fi, super rough around the edges, pretty much me sounding like like I have schizophrenia or something, right? But I came to some conclusions, and I wanted to hear your opinion on it, right? Because it's right around this subject, and this is controversial and this is weird, I know, but let's go at it. I studied ancient history a lot, right? And at one point in my life, I studied, different religions and the Egyptians and the occult and stuff like that. And I came to the conclusion that technology today is modern day magic. And not modern day magic in the sense that we don't know how it works or it's an illusion, even though it is an illusion. But like me and you right now, we're having this conversation. We're in two different spots. We could link up like this, like your phone is like a magic mirror. Your computer is like a magic mirror. You look into it, it shines its reflection, but at the same time, you could remote view through it. You could talk to people. You could go to Egypt. You could look at pictures of Egypt. They have movies or whatever of Egypt, and you could look at the pyramids. You can tour through them. You could do a lot of wild shit with technology, man. It extends people's lives. People have pacemakers in their hearts. You know what I mean? That keep their hearts bumping.
mhm.
Technology really is like some sort of modern day magic. And what are your thoughts on that? How crazy is that? How crazy does that sound to you?
I think, well, I mean, you literally go back 100 years and show them what we have now.
Right.
It's magic, right? And you go forward 100 years and you see what's going to be there in 100 years. That's magic, and like magic on a whole another scaled up level,
Right.
from what we know today, like seriously. But you know, I think the most interesting part of this to me is like, what is considered magic? You know, like what can you
Right.
consider to be magic? And you know, if you think about the creation of the universe, and I'm gonna, you know, say like how everything coming from the same point in space time, and like as far as we can trace back, is like from there everything took its shape together. Everything started from the same point and took shape together into many different forms. And
And
so
evolving
some, you
forms,
know,
because
some
shit
in
is
evolving
made
forms.
and destroyed, and with that destruction becomes new things.
So exactly. So it's destruction. And like, you know, so I was reading this book, and it's talking about, if, you know, we wouldn't be able to be here if we didn't go through like however many explosions of stars,
Definitely.
just so that, and which took exactly like 4 billion, 6 billion years or something like that, just for there to be enough star explosions in our region for us to have enough radiation to survive, you
Yeah,
know.
man.
So it's like when you look at that, and then you see all of these mechanisms outside the universe, and then you see all the mechanisms inside, like inside of our planet, that
And then
build
inside of
us.
ourselves,
And
like
then,
just about what you were saying, all those particles that it takes to make up everything, all those star explosions, all those
yeah,
particles are in us. We're made out of those star explosions.
exactly.
You know what I
And then
mean?
so you think about, so then you think about us, and then you think about the magic that we are creating. It's the magic is creating itself. And you know, we are only observers to a creation that is not our own, you know, because uh, like none of that we could not have what we have now without the however many years of humanity to create it there for us, and for us to wake up and see it, you know. And that's everybody. It's not one person doing it on their own.
Right.
So with our collective lives, it's nobody is not simply an observer of the constant unfolding of the universe's magical prophecy, you know. It's like even if we were to die and like just go extinct today, it's like the universe built that all on its own, you know. Like the whole thing is not ours, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, man.
So when you talk about magic, it's like it's magic to us, but
To someone else,
it's
to something
it's
else, it makes
physical.
perfect sense and it's
To
logical. It's not
something it makes
not
just like if
mysterious.
we were to, just like the people from 100 years, you know, like they're not gonna make sense of what we have now,
Right.
uh but we're not gonna necessarily make sense of things 100, 200, 300 years ago, or in the future, my
Well,
bad.
we can't even make sense of our past, man. Like the pyramids, for example, we don't really know how those were built. We don't
Right.
really know what that was used for, the Great Pyramid. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like
Yeah.
time and civilization and humanity doesn't always move linearly, like in a linear
Hmm.
fashion. It peaks and goes up, peaks and goes down, peaks and goes down. Like
Right.
there's a lot of weird shit going on. But
Yeah.
we live in a weird time, but I'm like excited at the same time too. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm not getting
Yeah.
no chip put inside my head. But if you got some dope ass fucking contacts that I could put in my eyes, and I
Yeah.
could take them
Yeah.
out when I want, but I could put them in, and you could, like, I was thinking about this shit last night. I was like, virtual reality movies, like where they make, and I know they already have 3D movies, but
Oh.
take it a step further. You know what I mean? Virtual reality
Just
movies.
wait. Just wait.
Do you got something in mind? Are you working on
Just
something?
wait. We got
Yeah, where
something
you're the
coming.
fucking main character and the whole film shot, like you're literally the center of the
Just
movie.
wait.
That's dope, brother. If you're working on something like
Hey
that,
man,
that's
just
dope.
wait. We got something coming. We got something coming.
That's dope, man.
And honestly, I would like to talk about that for a second too,
Let's do it.
uh, cause you know, like whenever I was in Chicago, um, whenever I was in Chicago, I went for film. I went for to learn film. And partially, you know, a big part of that actually was because I had had the opportunity to draw, to paint, to get my hands on resources, to experiment with things. And you know, I have a camera on my phone, have cameras here, but it was like that was my only opportunity to really get my hands on on real equipment and in a real setting. And the reason I did that was because, you know, you look at painting, it's a form of storytelling. You look at music as a form of storytelling. You look at dance as a form of storytelling. Uh, Television, uh, you know, and I think like cinema, film being really the embodiment, like the of all storytelling, because the contributions of painting to film composition,
Yeah.
the, you know, the contribution of music, like you
Yeah,
don't
man.
have a film without music, like for the most part. You can't tell, like a lot of stories in the way that they are told cannot be told the same way without music. A lot of them can't be told without poetry and the screenwriting that goes behind it, and simply the, you know, the theatrical elements
And
of
the
acting
composition
and
and the angles and the lighting and the coloring. There's
everything.
a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of,
There's a whole lot of it.
yeah, man.
And so like that was what I wanted to do. That was like what I saw. I was like, okay, I want to paint as much as I can, because like I have a lot of stuff to get out. I still do. But it's like in the end, I would like to know what that feels like, so I can go and put everything into that and make complete thing, like complete
Yeah, dude.
stories. And it was, you know, through like reading and just living, I guess, and just growing, that I was like, man, a movie in virtual reality, because not only are you giving them the whole spectrum, like you know, like I just said, but it's like you're putting them inside of it. You
Yeah.
can give them the feeling of being the character,
Yeah,
the feeling
exactly.
of being in that moment with, you know,
It just
whatever
adds
situation is
another
going
level
on.
of immersion into the art that you're perceiving, you know? It's just another level deeper.
Yeah. And
And movies are powerful, dude. Cinema is super powerful.
oh yeah, and they'll I think, you know, they'll probably always be around, maybe in like evolving ways, but
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily going to be replaced.
No, I'm
But
sure it's
yeah,
going to
it's just
evolve.
another
Like,
means.
look at the movies like in the 1900s. You know what I mean? They were like weird picture shows, weird audio. Like it was
Yeah.
completely like half animation, half images. And now look what we got. And
Hmm.
now, like I think what we're talking about right now is what you're going to see in like 30 years. Like where that's going to be like the mainstream thing is where you're doing virtual reality movies. Like that's the
Hmm.
mainstream. Everybody comes in, everybody turns on their fucking contacts or whatever, and everybody's along for the
Yeah.
ride. Everybody's the center of attention. You might even be able to pick your own fucking character. Do you play video games?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you think? I
I
mean,
mean, I used to a lot more than I do
the
now,
same
but
concept applies. Like, imagine how fun a
that's,
video
yeah,
game would
that's,
be if you're inside of it for real. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I don't know if you
yeah.
heard about the game Cyberpunk. Have you heard about that game that's coming out?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It kind of discusses, or it's kind of about some of the shit we're discussing with like augmented reality and being able to modify yourself and like modify your fucking arms and your eyes
Right,
and your
yeah,
ability and shit. But yeah, some
yeah.
far out shit. Some far out shit.
Hmm.
But go on,
Yeah.
man. So tell me about
I
this
mean,
movie. What's the idea for?
well, it's a. I'm not gonna get into super deep. It's not in complete, you know, ready to be put out or anything like that.
Do you have a script?
Um, yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. So it's like it's a very loose thing right now. But I do have strong plans for it. I've been working with friends on the ideas, and you know, really like want to do an experience to where it's something that people can go to, like if they were to go to a movie and experience it like that. And you know, just it. And talking about video games too is like a really, really also like like next to that's the thing that I kind of like want to emphasize on too, is like video games are kind of, when you think about virtual reality, they're kind of it's kind of automatically looked at as like video game. And when you look at video game demographics, is like who plays video games compared to who watches movies. Like the demographics is like, you know, everybody watches movies, but who plays video games, you
Right,
know?
right.
So when you're looking at the demographics, is like that perception of virtual reality as a video game console or video game system or medium or technology. I think it largely steers people away because they see it as like, oh, I'm not a gamer, I'm not into games. But that's like in these next few years, I really think it's going to be virtual reality is going to be a means to merge the two
Oh
of
yeah,
being in a video game and watching a movie,
no doubt.
because it's becoming like a means of just an experience, like of just experiencing something. And then so whenever we talk about like the means of haptics, like wearing gloves and wearing, you know, like chest plates and stuff that vibrates when something explodes
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
gives you touches. um and then we incorporate smell, and then we incorporate the visuals, you know,
Yeah,
that are
maybe
already
even mist
there.
or whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mist, sound, like physical elements, you
yeah.
know, everything like that is, it's going to turn into just like, it's no longer a game, it's no longer a movie, it's simply putting somebody into another experience, a complete life
It's almost like
experience, like whatever
entering
you
a
want to put it
different
in.
dimension almost. And
Exactly.
then
and
kind of what I
and
was
like,
talking about like earlier when I was talking about you could visit Egypt through your phone or through a documentary or something like that.
mhm.
Imagine that, and we're talking about this being like remote viewing or something related to like magic or something. Imagine that. Imagine somebody with the virtual reality technology creating a tour through Egypt and walking that thing all around. So you could actually literally go through a tour. You could stop. You could go backwards. You could look around. You could find little details. You could literally almost go to Egypt without being able to touch it from here in St.
Yeah.
Joe. Dude, the
And like,
potentiality is endless.
and if we could create those type of experiences, and by we I just mean everybody, like somebody, anybody, is like, if those type of experiences can be created and will, hopefully, is like making them unbiased. Because I was just talking to my friend, you know, about how I went to New York, and like trying to share some of these experiences about being in New York. And this is something that I kind of had a, you know, flashback. And she was like, my only idea of New York is like movies, you know. And then so you look at the narrative, and this is a huge part of where things are going, is like, um, if you look at the narrative of movies in New York, and this can be said for anything, whether it's about New York, whether it's about a demographic of people that are portrayed in movies, when you look at certain, any place, any location, or any circumstance of life that is portrayed in a movie, you are getting a biased narrative from those creators.
Right.
So if we're able to create experiences of demographics, experiences of locations that are unbiased, and as catered to realness as possible through all senses, and we can take people from St. Joseph, Missouri to Egypt, and they can leave that headset and that whatever and come back and know what it feels like to be in Egypt, or like have a strong idea of it,
Right.
then we
Right.
can, and if we can expose people in so many like endless dimensions of that, whether it be about race, equality, um, or just experiencing other cultures for what they are rather than what certain creators and biases want you to see of them, then we can begin exposing everybody without worrying about flying everybody out here, without worrying about everybody having access to a certain education, because
Right.
we can put these tools right here in this school, in this community, and allow all these kids to experience this and this and this and this and this and this for what it is,
No doubt.
you know, created by somebody that knows that.
Yeah, no
And
doubt, man.
you
No
know,
doubt. It's going to be a powerful learning tool, man. Just like what you're saying, like on a sociological level, but also like building, like being able to build stuff, being like, because I know, like me as a boy, I don't know, like when I was a kid, when I was in school, the way they taught me, like I didn't want to sit still all day. I didn't want to just sit and listen to a teacher. I wanted to be doing something.
right.
I wanted to be making
Yeah.
something. I wanted to be active, and virtual reality or augmented reality could give children or kids or young people that experience where they're actually able to shift things around, and that's how they learn how to build, or that's how they learn how to count, or that's how they
Right.
learn these really complicated you know this really complicated information. They can break it down and make it simple. And the strong point you made of introducing people to other people's cultures,
Yeah.
introducing people to other environments that they could or would never go to, that's powerful, man.
Mhm.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And there, you know, there's some people in particular that are really strongly about those things. Um, I will say one, Alton Glass. He works in virtual reality. I just uh, was an attendee for this virtual webinar a few weeks ago, where him and a couple others and a whole team of people worked with Time magazine to create a virtual recreation installation. So you go into this museum and put on the VR headset, and you're immersed in the audio and the visuals and years of research on the March on Washington. And so it allows you, they put you in this experience of being there with years worth of research into getting it down to the pinpoint. And so Alex and Glass really speaks strongly about the reshaping of certain narratives. And so that was like literally the whole thing was just reshaping narratives through virtual reality. And then the other is Idris Sandhu, and he is really a big like main inspiration for doing this in the gallery, using augmented reality with art in a different way. He he's crazy in tech. Like, if you do not ask me anything, about tech compared to like these guys, he is crazy, and like look him up. But he worked with Nipsey Hussle years back to create the Marathon clothing store.
Okay.
And if you're familiar, the Marathon clothing store, you go in and it was the world's first smart store. So you go in and created the software, the SDK, so like
No, I'm not
the
familiar. I've
software
heard of
development
I've
kit.
heard of Marathon the store, but I didn't know it was a smart
Yeah.
store. Break that down. What was it all about?
Yeah, so Idris Sandhu worked with Nipsey Hussle. If you'll have to look up the story of how that worked out, because Idris Sandhu is from Compton. Nipsey Hussle and him met there, and just there's a Hulu special on it. You can look up and find the
Okay,
story.
I'll have to check it out.
Idris he's a great guy, and really inspired a lot of what I'm talking about using it for using immersive technology for culture. And another point I'm going to touch on too, but basically for the Marathon clothing store, it's like you go in the store, you have the app that he designed along with the whole technology in the store, where you go, you use the app, and you're able to point the camera at clothing tags and logos, and see unreleased music videos, different kind of things from Nipsey Hussle only in that
In the store.
store.
That's dope,
when you're
man.
using it, on the products.
That's really
right there.
dope. That's really dope.
And so, like, when that happened was like, there's like a few things in like different places where it's like, man, if I ever go there, I got to see that. And, that's one of them. And that was a big inspiration for, like, cause I've always been more art based, but seeing the benefit of using technology to benefit people's lives and be a part of the contribution to giving people new ideas, expanding ideas, and cultural growth is what was like, yeah, let's attach this to an art world and see what we can do with it here. So yeah, like those guys, check them out. And that there's another thing about that too, is the benefit from working in this kind of technology, because not only is it the way that it's going to shape, the technology is going to shape our world, but there is a great opportunity. And if I can quote Alton Glass, like I can remember what he said exactly, is like, it's a great opportunity for minorities in the country to become a majority of this industry.
Yeah.
Because this is an industry that is being birthed right now.
Yeah,
it's being born right now. And so you look at film, this is an industry that has been around for years. And there's gatekeepers to this industry.
Right.
There's architecture, there's film, there's fashion, all of these industries that have been around forever, and they have their gatekeepers.
Right.
So it prevents a lot of minorities in the country, in the world, from emerging and creating their own lane and creating real great change. And there has been a lot of great
people broke
change,
through.
obviously.
Yeah, a lot of people broke
there's
through,
only
but
there's a glass ceiling to that.
Right.
So this is a great opportunity, and that's like why with this gallery, that's QZ, you know, like I don't know if we ever told you, but QZ is just like, those are the unused letters. And this is like shedding light upon the things, using things that are unused, and seeing value in those things that are not normally seen that, and you know, valued upon.
No, I get what you're saying, man. That's hella dope. That's really dope. I
Yeah,
respect
yeah.
that. And any young people out here listening, listen to what this dude says about creating this industry and having it being a minority-controlled industry. And this is the industry of the future. If there's any young people out
Yes.
there listening to this, man, take this very
You see
seriously
this,
because that's a
yes.
great idea. That's a great idea, man.
Yeah, and there's great people working on this right now. And like I said, get in touch with them. Like if you know, and if we can be of any contribution to that, that's, you know, been laying the groundwork for that as of recently, for being real contributors to things. But it's definitely part of the goal to put minorities on top with the thing that will be, you know,
The
a
leading
ruler
thing, and
of
yeah,
education, entertainment, you
everything.
know,
It's gonna be
it's
the next thing.
exposure to the world.
It's the next
Exactly.
thing. It's the
So
next thing for sure, dude. And you know, that is some good information. People need to hear that type of shit, bro. And I'm proud that you're on the cutting edge of it, man. I really am. What do you think about this whole 2020 situation? A lot of wildness is going on out here.
2020,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said. I would say
We broke
you good.
up
Yeah.
right when I
Um.
asked about 2020, shit started getting weird.
Yeah.
So just
Okay.
go right in what were you saying?
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking of just opportunity. Um. You know, I mean, there's I don't think there's been a greater time. I mean, I'm 20 years old, but that I can think of, at least in recent history, where it's like there's opportunity to recognize that we have to do something. Everybody has to be doing something. And you know, I think about being me. I'm 20 years old. I was born in the year 2000. A lot of my friends are, you know, in my grade are 1999 and 2000, you know. So it's like we grew up in this time where we had years before all this technology stuff started.
Right.
Like, you know, we had those years before it was this world. But then we were just in that age where it started coming up, and we saw kids being born into that world.
Right.
So it's like we had both sides. And before, you know, so like looking back is like, you think about the contrast between, and you know, maybe you could understand this better, is like you look at the contrast between the world that we hear about of before, that you know, people of older generations have experienced more of, the world without as much technology and all this stuff. And it's like uh the contrast between that and now is is in terms of people not doing things. And what I mean by not doing things is not like not contributing anything, but not looking at the greater scheme. Is like we can't just survive anymore. We have to put ourselves in the position to thrive, as like, if we're, because we can see that now, like if we're not thriving as a collective species, we're not doing, like, we're going back.
I just think
And
this shit has exposed a lot of old architecture, like a lot of old ways of thinking. And I think, you know, people like you, the
exactly.
guys coming up like you and guys like me, and even guys older and younger than us, they're realizing that, you know, not the world's for the taking, but it's our job to shift consciousness. It's our job
Yeah.
to take accountability. It's our job to kind of craft and massage this world into the world we want it to be, because we know this world has a lot of potential. You know, it's never going to be perfect,
Yes.
but we know we could do better than this. You know, we got more love in our
Exactly.
hearts. We got more intelligence. We got more creativity than what we're showing right now, than what this world is expressing. You know, so right now I think it's a cleansing of the palate.
It is. And you know, that's why I started talking about opportunities. Like, it's an opportunity to recognize things that you hadn't recognized before, whether it be about what's happening on the other side of the world, or what's happening with your neighbors, or why your neighbor acts that way sometimes, and figuring, and like you said, the old architecture, it's an opportunity to learn what, and not learn, but be exposed to that architecture and see not only what is happening here, but what's happening in Yemen right now, what's happening in different parts of the world, and why they are the way they are, and why they're not going to last any very long at all if we don't do something about it,
Right.
you
Right.
know, in different ways. And so like with everything right now, it's like the best thing to do is to shape your inner world to be a learner, to be a seeker, and
There you go, brother.
be open to learning new things, and be open to being wrong, and be open to possibilities of creating that world that we have the power to mold, and we
Right.
have the power to make it one that supports everybody.
Right.
And
100%, man. 100%, bro.
so
Well said.
yeah, I
Well
mean,
said, man.
we all have to be open, and it's like now is the time, if nothing else, to for people who are not yet open with themselves to be wrong, and to be like able to accept new views. At the very least, that's very necessary right now.
Yeah.
And once that happens, the next is take action. Find more ways to help people, find more ways to mold even your local
Yeah, man.
communities,
Because it
because
starts with
that's where it
us.
starts.
It
That's
starts
where
with
it
us
starts. Yes,
individually, and then we share that with our friends, and then that
exactly.
friend group becomes a collective, and that collective becomes a community, and that
Becomes the
community,
world.
yeah, oh yeah, man.
Becomes the
No
world.
doubt. No doubt,
Right.
man.
For sure.
That's crazy. But I have another question for you, but I feel like we already kind of covered it with this conversation. But what do you think the role is for an artist in this time?
For an artist, I mean, that's, artists is artists are the, you know it it's the input output. It's the necessary, it's the next necessary transferring of energy to different things, to taking our experiences of what everybody's going through. Everybody is an artist, and ex- taking your experience of what you're feeling from whatever you're seeing in the world, and destroying that, thinking about it, and allowing it to breathe and be in yourself, and create something with it. And somebody else is going to experience that, and that's part of their experience, that
Right.
now they're going to refine that experience mentally and put that into something else. And this is all a part of it's a part of growth that we can, like, art is a part of growth,
And
just
artists are
simply
kind
as
of
that. It's
they're the leaders. Like the artists are the ones
yes,
that set mental trends. We set, either if it's visual art, if it's music, you're setting mental trends. You're looking at the world at on a cutting edge way. And I think, man, I said this in the last podcast. It's really up to us, and no matter how big or small of an artist you are, man, it's up to us. And we kind of covered it already, that we got to try to shift and mold this world into a better place, because it has the potential, and we have the potential, man.
it's not only the potential, but we have been blessed with, every one of us blessed with a certain set of amazing tools and unique experiences that we all have to tell our stories, in certain
Definitely.
ways. And sometimes that means amplifying certain other people's stories. Your story can be, even if your story is supporting other people's stories, you
Definitely.
know
Definitely, man.
uh it's just as important. So yeah, it's like it it is like a I mean, a responsibility in a sense.
It is.
I
It
think
is.
I think a lot of artists right now do have a sense of responsibility, or feel a sense of responsibility to be a certain kind of voice, and I don't think people should be scared of that either. Is like, it's okay. You don't have to, I think some people think about, like, the action of doing things outside of art are more important than art itself. And I think it's important to understand that the art is as great of a contribution, in a certain sense, because it's
Oh
going to
yeah.
benefit somebody's
Oh yeah.
perspective of seeing something. It's
And
going to benefit your own perspective of your own coping,
definitely,
with
dude. And with pictures, just talk about pictures, but even music or film or whatever,
right,
it speaks 1,000 words. And
right,
there's so much information encoded in a great painting that you could look at it
yes,
forever and you're still finding new shit and you're still uncovering things and there's so much
yes,
wisdom and thought and energy put
yes,
behind it that it could really it, it really just changes people's perspective on things and it's great, man.
yes.
It's great. It really is.
And I like how you said that, like, you look at a painting and you keep finding more things. And that brings me to the thought, and it's a belief that I've had, for a while, is like the art, is not necessarily yours.
Yeah, it
It's not
makes itself
necessary. It's
sometimes,
not,
right?
it makes itself. And
Yeah,
it's like, you don't know, like when people ask you, if I was to ask you, like, what influences you, what's your inspiration, you're
right.
going to tell me, like, maybe you have like certain inspirations, this, but there's billions of things that really influence you and influence like what you just made behind you, or whatever you were making, or the way that you were expressing yourself, that you may pinpoint a few things, but you cannot limit it to just those things. It's like millions, billions of things that are influencing the way that you create, the things that you create, even if
Definitely.
that's just your body language, or your articulation of your words. So, if you look at it like that, I think it becomes more on
Something
its
more.
own.
Yeah. Well, I had this
Yeah,
conversation
yeah.
with a painter a couple episodes ago, and we were talking about how some of our best work comes from our subconscious. It's like you're not
Mhm.
even thinking
Right,
about it. You know what I mean? You're not even thinking about what you're making. You're just playing around. You're just having fun. You know what I mean? Like you're a kid.
yeah,
And then the result of that is something that, is amazing or that inspires you,
right.
or that makes you feel good, makes you happy. So, yeah, I mean, I think you made some really good points.
Well, to trace that back to now, you see how we were talking about virtual reality movies is like the, encapsulating all these forms of art.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you think about that as like some kind of, you know form of creation that is like manifesting a lot of ideas and mediums into one thing. But a virtual like a virtual reality creation, a virtual reality movie is something that we create all of the time. When you go to sleep, when you go to sleep, that's you're putting your mind is creating an entire virtual reality simulation
Right,
on its own. You're
right,
not
right.
deciding. You're
Same
not the
with
decider, and that's
psychedelics.
what I'm talking about.
Same with
Yeah.
psychedelics. If you eat psychedelics, you hallucinate your mind. But it's deeper. I get what you're saying, but when it comes to dreams and psychedelics, it becomes a deeper thing because with virtual reality, you could really paint that picture visually.
Oh yeah.
But
Well,
the
that's
internal
what I mean.
dialogue is what gets weird during dreams and during
Yeah.
trips and shit.
And that's what I'm saying. Like you have the ability to go out in the world and manifest your own thing, and like write how you want it to be and everything. But sometimes when you look at your dreams, it's like a lot of artists pull from their dreams. Even like when you wake up in the morning, you might not remember what you dreamt about, but that dream, the emotions of it are resonating within you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like your mind is creating these things subconsciously. You're not necessarily the creator. You're not consciously putting these things
Right,
together,
right.
but your mind on its own is delivering you this experience
Yeah,
of literally, you're placing light, like shapes and forms of light.
yeah,
You're creating sound in your brain. You're creating words and dialogue and colors and movement,
yeah.
all in your own brain. You're completely immersed in it, and you don't need, like, you don't need to sit for hours and think about how you're going to make this, how I'm going to make this, because your
Right.
brain can do it
It
on
just
its
happens.
own.
Yeah, it just
So
happens.
so that's part of, like, when it comes to now 2020 and artists making art, is like, you may not know exactly how you feel. You may not, it is, because there's a lot of things going on,
Yeah.
but just allow it, uh
To flow through you.
keep allowing it to come out. And I think, like, now more than ever, it's like, make make let it, even if it's just a few words that you need to let out and look back on and realize, oh, I'm gonna make a painting about this because this is how I felt in this crazy time in 2020.
Yeah.
that's, like that seems very necessary to me, just for everybody to get their things out, as whether you consider yourself an artist or not. Just,
Yeah, man.
you know,
I got a
push
couple more
them push them
questions for
things
you. I
out.
know you got some shit going on. What do you think about, social media's role in this? I don't know what you want to call it, this change of consciousness and all this, and exposing all this fucked up shit. I've seen my personal, perspective. I've seen a lot of people use their voice on social media to point out injustices and to point out fucked up shit and to share useful and important information. Man, what is your take on all that?
My take, I mean, it's you know, I've had a very interesting, like personal relationship with these things, as like when all this stuff kind of started, I was not using social media. It was into a few days, I think, of things started happening and hearing about it in, from friends and stuff, where it's like, I need to know what's going on, I need to see. And that's like in the heat of like a few days, probably like first or second day into the heat of protest. And that's like, I start getting into it, and I'm like, the most important thing is there's people out in certain places that are in danger right now, um, that could be benefited simply, somebody could be benefited simply by me sharing this, by sharing information,
Right.
whatever it may be. And I think that is a very, very, very important thing, is for people to be exposed to information and to look into it on them by themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily everybody's responsibility to educate everybody,
Right.
but to expose people to certain things, to encourage them to find things on their own, and to be involved in seeking facts and seeking truth, no matter where it's going on. But there's another thing, is that, I see you on Facebook. I don't know if I have you on Instagram or whatever, but I get on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and do you get on all three of those
Yeah,
platforms?
I was gonna let you finish because I got my own kind of story, but go ahead. Because I was like you, man.
Well,
I was, before all this shit started happening, I kind of made it a point in my life to step back from social media because I didn't think it was serving me very well. Because honestly, a lot of the content on there is pretty bullshit and pretty, pretty fast food. It's not
yeah,
really,
fast
substantial.
food, yeah.
But I was following some blogs like right at the beginning when this shit started happening, and the blogs were releasing footage of, shit that the news wasn't even getting yet. You know what I mean? So when I seen
Yeah,
this footage
yeah,
of like these guys that look like military guys, starting riots and shit, I'm like, I gotta put it on Facebook because that's where the most people are gonna see it, and at least I could, give these people this information, to see what the fuck's
right.
going on. At least they could get the information so you know what's going on. And then from that, I just seen it kind of shifted more into people are actually now talking about some stuff with more substance to it. You know what I mean? And I'm in for that, and I got to use it as a marketing tool, But
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, and with Facebook, so you're talking about Facebook, is like Facebook. I feel like is very discussion oriented too, to where you may have people commenting, hating on you, but I've realized, at least through Facebook, you're connecting with more people with different views,
right,
and that's, leads to things, hopefully being figured out. I still don't know if anybody can truly be convinced through Facebook, at
I
least
don't
here
think you can. I
locally.
mean, I think it's a
Uh,
bad form for it. I do get that point, and people can comment and da da da. But when have you ever seen in a comment section where people are arguing, one person being like, you know what, man, you made a good
right,
point. I changed my
right,
mind. You never see that
right,
shit. I
bro. Never,
actually,
never.
I refrain from that as much as I can. If I
Hmm.
do see somebody post something that like I think I could give them more information on, I'm not going to put it on the comment. I'll private message them so we could have a private conversation about it. So like egos aren't involved and it's not a weird thing. But my
Right.
mom
Yeah.
did post something that was like out of the Bible that did have to do with the situation going on in the country right now. And people, and she's a teacher and she's like, a nice lady, and people were commenting on her post like all lives matter and bullshit like that. You know what I mean? So I had to kind of
Hmm.
engage in a discussion on Facebook, and it's like it was a kind of positive discussion, but like nobody's changing their mind. Nobody. It takes
Right.
real conversation. It takes real dialogue.
Yes. Yeah, and so I think like with social media ultimately is like encouraging actual physical social things. And I think, you know, we can think that uh that we can go to social media to congregate in a certain way, or to a certain degree we can congregate and talk about things and discuss ideas. But truthfully is like everybody has their own echo chamber of their own ideas going out and coming straight back to them.
Right.
And with that is like, I you know, we need to if we can't immediately change that, then we need to, you know, encourage real engagement, you know,
I think
engagement
they
that
disencourage that on Facebook, particularly because they have these algorithms that run it. You know, it's not, you're not seeing
right,
shit in real time. They're putting shit where they think it's going to get the most engagement, not
right,
necessarily the
right.
most informative.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
And yeah, that's also a huge problem, is like what is actually informative, what is factual, what
Right,
is
right,
half fact, what is half opinion,
right.
who is this coming
And who
from? And
determines that?
most people are not.
Whose job is
Yeah,
it to
yeah,
determine that? Because that's even a more
yeah.
hard position. You know what I mean?
And then yeah, yeah, and then like you got, you know, even if people do have facts, is like people are gonna, you know, you say something and then somebody else is gonna present something, and then, you know, maybe you throw facts and then they throw facts or whatever. But it's like, is it really those facts, or is it something in that person
Right,
that you're never gonna know because they're just finding facts to support their inner
right,
opinions,
right, right.
that you're not going to change them with any number of statistics or facts. And that's why it's like you can't do that. If you're gonna do that, like you you got to find an environment that is not their environment, because you're talking to them through their environment, their echo chamber. You have to meet them halfway, and people, in order to meet people halfway, they have to be just as willing as you are, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So
I think you brought up some really good points. I think it has to do a lot with personal conversations, one-on-one conversations. You're able to
yes,
kind of get more to the meat of the problem. Like, are we not, having a conversation based off facts? Is this an emotional conversation? Well, why do you feel this way? Then you could really get to
yeah,
that, and people kind of let their guard down.
yeah, yeah. I
I
mean, that it can be tricky to know where that goes, though,
No,
you
yeah, it's
know, for
complicated,
people
but
digitally,
life's
virtually.
complicated. Life's complicated.
Yes, yes, but I mean, like at the end, if all you're doing is, I would say all you're doing as if it's like a small, you know, whatever. But if you can at least continue to post what you believe, is like it's reminding people that things are still going on, and to keep that conversation going. And that, as you know, as much as I can do, you are, you know, even if it is through a weird medium of like this weird virtual space, is like you going through and connecting with somebody through this posts, through this whatever you're saying, hopefully will encourage that person to be physically present in those conversations as
Or at
well.
least to think about
uh
things in a different way. You know what I mean?
exactly, to be present and encourage their community to grow, just like we were talking about. Start with your friends, the
Definitely,
community,
man.
and you know, yeah. So
Definitely.
it's a complicated thing, but yeah,
For sure. Well, we had a lot of
I don't know
discussion.
very much, but
Me neither,
I don't
man.
know
Me
very
neither.
much.
Me neither.
I really don't.
I'm a dude. I'm a seeker. I'm learning just like everybody else, man. I'm trying to
Yeah,
get the
I
information
am
and trying
like,
to get the understanding.
I'm the most children of children. So I don't know anything. Find your own stuff. Anybody, don't listen to
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Don't
We've had a
listen to
lot
me.
of positive dialogue about technology and social media and all of that. Let's kind of turn it around and look at the other side. So everybody's kind of aware that huge companies are taking all of our data and they're doing a lot of weird shit with it. And we basically have no privacy anymore. How do you feel about that, man?
I mean, it's personally, it's like it. And you know, although I'm like getting my feet wet into some things, is like I said, I don't really know to what extent, if I even if I was to go and chop everything off the internet, is like what is, like somebody still has it. Even if I was to go completely ghost mode, you know, whatever, it's like
Right.
somebody still has it. So like
Right.
to what extent can I really change that? And so I'm kind of like to what extent can I really allow that to
Control
bother
you.
me and
Yeah.
to like dictate how I live my life. I don't want to be out here super paranoid, but I think with that is just like, I know there's people targeting me, not like as like a special person. Everybody's targeted
Yeah.
for like certain
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
advertisements, marketing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everybody's being targeted for certain things. And with, you know, whatever somebody wants to do that with, that is like, if I can't, you know, and I'm sure there is things we can do about that, but it's like, I'm not going to allow it to dictate my life. And I think just being authentic, just living a true life, I don't really feel like there's any amount of something that is really going to harm me, unless it's somebody coming after me or my family or somebody,
I
you
feel you,
know,
man. You can't
near
fear,
me is,
in my opinion, you can't fear nobody but God. You know what I mean? But there is
yeah.
some serious, you know, concerns to come with that. When people have your data, they can, you know, create the narrative on you if they choose to do that. You know, if
If
people
they
really,
choose, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah, if
definitely.
they choose to do that. But, you know, I just want to get your opinion on it because you're kind of, you know, you're up on technology and stuff, man. But I'm very glad and thankful that you joined me on this podcast, man. This was great dialogue. You had some really good points. Where can people find you? Where can people find your artwork? How can they get in contact with you?
Instagram, you know, Benito Q Longoria is my Instagram. Twitter, um, you know, Facebook, whatever. Mostly my art is on Instagram, working on my website, you know. But yeah, I
Is there
mean,
anything going on
I'm
at QZ
really
Gallery?
currently no. I mean, physically, event wise, no. We were going event oriented for the early year, but things kind of shifted up a bit,
Yeah.
obviously. So, you know, right now, I would say trying to create a solution or solutions to the means to present art in a gallery setting, the means to connect people through an art viewing gallery experience in an alternative fashion. Um, these are, you know, the focuses right now, and things that not only are, I feel like, are important right now, but are going to continue to be important. But you know, so I would say that's probably going to be up next, is some virtual alternatives to gallery experiences, some things we're going to be trying out in the next, you know, remainder of the year, I guess. And artwork eventually, you know, becoming and then, like I said, you know, mentioned that there's also things down the line, virtual reality, things to be coming. Um, but really, it's been taking a lot of energy just trying to expose myself to more. And yeah, that's been the main thing. But
I feel you, man. Well, any of you entrepreneurs out there, any of you guys that have businesses and you want to find new and creative ways to promote your business, talk to this man right here. This guy is on the cutting edge of augmented reality. He can make you augmented reality business cards, menus, all different types of cool shit, right?
yeah,
Right?
anything.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
experimenting always.
Yeah, so he's the guy to talk to if
Experimenting
you really
always.
want to take your business to the next level. Talk to this guy, man. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, Benito.
Appreciate you having me, man. Appreciate it.
Take it easy,
All
brother.
love. Hey, you too, man. Thank you.
All right, dog.